Hello there and welcome back. My name is Fotios and this is the Game Court. Today is another episode for our solo fun gamers, and in particular today we'll be covering 5 games, 5 two-player games that play amazingly solo. And you might have these games already in your collection and you might fancy giving them a try using their solo modes, or you may not have them in the collection and you're thinking to buy a game that's good for you and your partner, but every now and then you may want to enjoy the games by yourself as well. So, in number 5, we have a game called Oranienburger Kanal, and it's a game that we have previously covered in this channel. It's a two-player game, but it has a dedicated solo mode. It's designed by Uwe Rosberg and is published by Spielworks. But, it's a hard to find game overall, but there will be a reprint of this game called just Kanal, with a K, Kanal, so keep an eye out for it. Now, the game works extremely well both as a solo game and as a two-player game. What you do in this game, you try to construct different buildings in Oranienburger, but also different routes around these buildings, which could be simple paths or roads or railways or even canals, as the game suggests. And when you have four different or the same type of routes around a building, that building is going to activate, but the building is going to activate also a second time when you have two bridges connecting two buildings. Now, the game is a very nice puzzle. It has some economic elements and a nice rondel for the resources and how the resources convert from one type to the other, from clay and wood to, let's say, a brick, for instance. And also has a worker placement aspect, and in a two-player game there are 5 turns in a round, so one player will take 3 turns, the other player will take 2 turns, and in the other round will be the other way around. Now, how this works as a solo game, it's actually quite simple, in the sense that you have one red big chip disk that blocks one space, and then you have the remaining 6 spaces available, but you have 4 turns in a round and you play exactly 7 rounds. In a two-player game you play as many rounds as you need. In a solo player game you play exactly 7 rounds times 4 turns, so you take exactly 28 turns. And it's one of these games of beat your own score, so the more you score the better, and you try to do so again by building buildings and constructing routes around the buildings to activate these buildings that will give you points and other perks to basically improve your engine. This game doesn't have any kind of automa deck of cards. The maintenance and setup of the solo game is very minimal, and I think it's very easy to follow, and because Oranienburger Kanal is a predominantly, I would say, multiplayer solitary game or two-player solitary game, the solitary version of this game is also, it has the same feeling as a two-player game, so I really recommend it. In number 4, we have Patchwork. And yet again, it's another game by Uwe Rosberg, and you would wonder here, because Patchwork, it's a two-player game and it doesn't have a solo mode out of the box, but actually there is a solo deck of cards, an automa deck of cards that was offered as a promo at some point. And if you're wondering when you can find this, actually now there's a 10th anniversary Patchwork game that includes this deck of cards, this automa deck of cards in the box. So how it works, again, it's an automa deck of cards. You have 24 cards and there are 2 decks, 12 and 12, so you use only 12 out of these 24 cards. And basically these cards will instruct which tile the automa will take, and there are some conditions, some ordering conditions, like bigger tile first, or the tile with the most buttons, or the tile so that, the automa pawns doesn't surpass your pawn. The automa doesn't really put these patches into the board, they just stack them on the side, and in some cases they may even collect income, but the amount of income they collect is dependent on the card, is printed on the card, and also on the card it's printed how much money they have for that particular turn. Again, it's very easy to follow, so you really focus on your game, and then the automa turns is quite minimal, it's very easy to maintain and to play with it. And I think that compared to a two-player Patchwork game, I think the solo game of Patchwork takes about, I would say, half the time. In number 3, we have another great two-player game. It's called Caesar. Seize Rome in 20 minutes, and actually it is very true in its title because this game is played exactly in 20 minutes, and it is designed by Paolo Mori, who has done many kind of word game designs, and this is a very elegant word game. It's some sort of area majority where you're trying to put some markers down which represent influence, and as you put the marker you place it on the board of the two regions. And this marker has two numbers, so it's one number for one region and the other number for the other region. And when a region is surrendered, then we simply sum up the numbers of each player, and whoever has the highest influence, they would put a control marker within that region. And it's a race game in the sense that you try to put out all your control markers before your opponent. Now the game comes with an official solo mode in its box, and this is again some sort of automa. I think it's called Autocrasus or something like that, and it's a set of tiles, and there are several tiles, and you can mix several tiles to basically determine the difficulty of the solo player. And these tiles again dictate what the automa will do, and there is a long list of priorities for which region the automa will go first. For instance, a region that they are going to close and win, or they just will close, or a region they have interest in, and so on and so forth. So there's a big list of priority how the automa is going to place a disc, an influence marker, and these tiles, these automa tiles, they instruct you how many of these discs they're going to place, but how many also discs they're going to draw from the bag, so they have available discs to select from. It's a quite challenging solo game, the solo mode of Caesar, and it's quite satisfying. In general, Caesar is one of these games that, it feels like a small box but a big game, so after even 20 minutes of game you feel kind of satisfied, so you feel like you played a very big game. It gives this tension overall, and this applies to both the two-player game but also the solo mode. In position number 2 we have SkyTeam, and this is a recent two-player game in which one player is the pilot and the player is a co-pilot, and there is some sort of no communication within the round, where you have 4 dice each and you try to allocate them in different positions to do different stuff, like the speed of the plane, or to open some flaps, or to apply some brakes, and so on and so forth, or even to get some coffee to have some dice manipulation for later on, or clear the traffic in the horizon. Anyway, but the key aspect here is that you cannot communicate your pool of dice with your opponent's pool of dice, not of opponents, the co-pilot's pool of dice, in the sense that you have to allocate them with this no communication aspect. Now, there's not an official solo mode for SkyTeam, but if you go to the website Board Game Geek or BGG, you're going to find plenty of unofficial solo variants, and one I really like refers to basically taking one role, either the pilot or the co-pilot, and you roll your die and you allocate them when your turn comes. Whereas when you're off turn, what you do, you just roll one of the 4 dice of the other roll, and then you allocate it. So you have full information of your 4 dice of your own roll, and each time you roll just 1 die of the other roll. So in aspect, you take all the decisions, all the placement decisions, but you don't have again the full information of what is rolled by the other roll, the one we don't control, but still you roll one by one, and based on what you have, you decide how you allocate the dice. It works amazingly as a solo game, and I'm surprised that the publisher doesn't have yet released an official solo mode. I think that will happen quite soon, but it's one of these games that, it has all of these modules that you can play with, you can explore, so a lot of variability in the game. So I think it's a game that works excellent as a solo game, and I think you should try it as well. And in the first position for this video, we have another game that is, again, a 2-player game, and like Caesar, it feels like a big game in a small box. It is the 7 Wonders Duel, which is the re-implementation of the 7 Wonders. It's one of the most, widely known games in the industry, both 7 Wonders and 7 Wonders Duel. It's widely available, and yet again, if you buy it, there is no solo mode in the box, per se. But there is a solo mode that you can print off by yourself. It consists of a small decision deck of cards, but also some leaders, and you can select the leader you're going to play against, and this leader may specialize in, let's say, resources or advanced resources, or the yellow cards which represent wealth, and so on and so forth. And basically they will give priority in selecting these cards from the pyramid of cards that you have available in each age in 7 Wonders Duel. And basically the drafting will become automatic, will done automatically using these decision cards, which is the same set of decision cards for each leader. The only thing that changes between leaders is for which card they will go for. And if the card they want to go for is not available, then they will select a red card, which is a war card, or a green card, which is a science card, from the respective row, from left to right or from right to left, depending on the decision card that the deck will show you. Now, again, it's a quite easy to follow automa game, and it doesn't really distract you from your own game. If you are afraid of just printing something like that, I would say that this is potentially one of the easiest print and play variants you can do. It only consists of a small set of cards and some leaders. You don't need fancy paper or anything like that. You can just put the printed cards in some sleeves if you want to make them a bit, more sturdy. But overall, it's a very easy to follow automa, and it works very well, very true to the game, because these leaders give a direction, have a strategy, if you wish. And this is quite similar to how the two-player game works. So it's a game that I really love, 7 Wonders Duel, and the solo mode in this game works actually amazing. So yeah, these are 5 great two-player games that also play amazingly as solo games, and you can consider trying them as solo games, by yourselves, or you can even, with another person, you can consider trying the solo modes of these games in a cooperative fashion. This also works, I think, because sometimes, we don't want to play a competitive game of Caesar, but we can play a cooperative game of Caesar, for instance. So in that sense, you can share decisions with your teammate, and you can take the decisions together to try to beat the automa. One thing is true, that the solo gaming community is increasing quite rapidly over the months, over the years. There are so many dedicated great solo games, like the ones I have here, Black Sonata, Maquis, or Deep Space D6. But many games nowadays increasingly offer very good solo modes, and either we're talking about two-player games or multiplayer games. Many of these solo modes are amazing and they are worth trying. If you have any suggestions for me of two-player or other multiplayer games that play very well solo, please let me know down in the comments. I will be very happy to hear from you. And thank you so much for watching this video, and see you later. Bye bye.